Look out! I can finally write scripts again. Thank the Lord. And also Vern, who gave it to me. The computer, I mean. And as it turns out, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are pretty good, actually. They're the culmination of 3D Pokemon games and mechanics in modern times. Your bike is a single Pokemon that just happens to gain power-ups similar to HM moves of old. Scarlet and Violet's take on ride Pokemon is a lot more streamlined, and while you could make the argument that it would be nice to ride or utilize any or all of your Pokemon, the only way I see that happening is if each and every Pokemon is coded to adhere to a certain number of HM moves, and if you happen to have the proper gym badges or whatever else type of clearance, could then go on to use whatever Pokemon fits that HM requirement at the time. For example, literally any water type of decent size or higher would be qualified to be surfed on, and then of course they'd have to animate each one as well as the trainer with it. However, at the end of that treacherous forest of coding nightmare, at the end of the tunnel, you'd be able to see the light. The perfect replacement for Pokemon needing to know the HM moves, like ride Pokemon, except you'd be able to utilize literally any appropriate Pokemon that just is in your party at that time. I feel like that's already so close. Something I honestly really appreciate about Scarlet and Violet is the actually open world that just lets you go anywhere and do anything in any direction. It's a shame there's no level scaling, but I guess then you'd have to program a bunch of different teams that would be used only to ultimately only use 1/8 or 1/18th possibilities. Going off Scarlet and Violet, because that's what, 8 to 18 different variations of teams depending on how far you are. Perhaps that's just too much. But what do I know? Obviously nothing, considering how poor I am. Scarlet and Violet also offers a feature I've literally never even looked at before. You can ask your Pokemon for advice for which move to delete. I can't imagine. I've never even looked at it. I generally just weigh the new attack versus the old ones, and aim for ones that line up with my higher attack stat. Plus, maybe a fun status move, sometimes too. Look, Scarlet and Violet aren't perfect by any means, and in more ways than one, they're not particularly good games. However, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not good games in other aspects. For example, I genuinely appreciate a lot of the towns, cities, and terrain plotting alongside the various Pokemon centers that you can see dotted across the map. Areas like in Mesa Goza, where you can see an icon for each type of Pokemon in the game in the ground tiles. Coscarafa with its cliffside fixture and water elevators, and I guess normal elevators too. Waterfalls, Jesus. That one town that has that old Generation 1 Pokemon icons from the menus, but they're both on the wall and ground as tiles. By tiles, I mean, they're made to look like real world art tiling. Anyway, even if the visuals in the games aren't particularly great, it'll never not tickle me when you can see 3 different Pokemon centers all over the screen, across the horizon, or peeking from behind a hill or mountainside. I absolutely love how the battles just fully occur in the exact same space you're exploring in. For example, if your Pokemon becomes horribly damaged or even fainted, but you can see the Pokemon Center behind the Pokemon you're battling, then just feel the relief of knowing you can heal them good as new in a bit. I'm like Jennifer Lopez because I just can't get enough. But that's not all, since of course the music is always a banger. Coscarafa Town's music will go down in history as one of the songs of all time. Anyway, I actually like Scarlet and Violet, and I definitely don't think that they're terrible. I wish a lot of the mechanics and such were a lot better, finely tuned, with nicer aesthetics and models, and definitely actual customization. I bet that's the multiplayer aspect that made them cut down on the number of clothes. It's a shame that the largest franchise in history doesn't divert more money and effort into their games offices. But I'm out of things to say for now, so thank you for watching. Jesus loves you, and I love you too.